Hello everyone, I hope you are well. Today in this video I will show you all the cryptos of the top 50 that for me will not break their old ATH on this cycle. So before showing them to you one by one, I still want to clarify that as you know in the crypto field there can always be surprises, and so among this list we are not safe from the two of us going to completely explode overnight, but if we project ourselves as an investor we cannot rely on that to invest, and we are obliged to do in terms of probability. And then I also want to clarify that it is not because they are part of this list that we necessarily have to go and sell them, since for some, even if there will not necessarily be ATH, it does not prevent that there will perhaps be quite nice performances which will allow to go to x3 of x4 of x5, and so if you have a reasonable proportion in your wallet, and well, it can allow you both to balance it and perhaps even on some to slightly outperform Bitcoin on 2025. Hop friends, just before starting, if you want to trade like me, I have listed in the link in description the exchanges that I use on a daily basis, and you will be able to register there with screw discounts on your transaction fees. So before we start, before showing you all the cryptos one by one, I will already show you how I selected them and then why for me you should still try to prioritize cryptos that can make a new ATH. So already in terms of selection there are really for me some markers that are really important to look at, and the first is to look in terms of price, how it has evolved compared to May-June 2022. So compared to the crash of Terra Luna had really marked a first big bottom at the end of the previous cycle, and compared to November 2022, so at that time compared to the crash of FTX, in which had marked at the same time the bottom on most cryptos and in particular on Bitcoin around $15,000. So for me it's really interesting to look at how it has evolved since these two dates, because if you have a crypto like for example here A.T.H, which is almost in the same prices as in 2022, and well, that still means that there is very little return of dynamics on it, and so once again it's just a question of probability, but it still means that over the rest of the cycle there is still very little chance that there will be a big return of dynamics on it. And the second indicator that I find quite interesting and quite telling is to look at where the price is in relation to the 200 weekly moving average. So if you have the price which is below the 200 millimeters, or which is struggling to get out of it, that still means that there we have a crypto on which there is not much dynamics. And if I show you for example a crypto on which we have a good dynamics, like for example on BNB, and well, look, we are very well above the prices of 2022 and we are in the same time very well above the 200 moving average. We can even see that there have not been many passages below, and suddenly it allows BNB to be almost on these levels of 2021, therefore to be already almost in test of the ATH. And so why is it that suddenly it is better to favor cryptos that can still make an ATH? Quite simply because these are cryptos that have better potential, since once we have a break of the ATH we then enter a period that we call price discovery, and therefore in this period, well, there is no more resistance, and therefore afterwards we use for example the Fibonacci extensions to try to find resistances. We will say theoretical, and in reality there is no more resistance at all. There are more indicators above, there are more price levels that can block us, and therefore it is on this kind of crypto we will generally go for the best performances. So I will show them to you in order. So to start we're going to take XRP, on which we have to go by 6.5 to get the ATH, so I'm going to try to go through each one quickly enough so that the video doesn't last too long. So on XRP, and well, quite simply we see that we are roughly on the 200 moving average, so we don't have an asset there that is super dynamic and that has managed to get out of it. And we see that since the end of 2022 we haven't had a price that has done x4 or x5, and then we see that in terms of performance we are still quite far from the ATH. So for me on XRP we won't have a new ATH on the cycle. So then Dogecoin, there it's the same for me, there will be no new ATH on the cycle, so there to go to make an ATH you have to go to make approximately x6.7. so for a memecoin it remains a performance which is possible, but well, here we see that the dynamics, it is not great. We are back below the moving average 200, and even in terms of volume now there is less volume on Dogecoin than for example on PEPES, and I have the impression that it is not very detrimental to Dogecoin. So here for all these reasons for me Dogecoin is a crypto on which I think there is very little chance that we will have a new ATH on the cycle. So the next one is A.T.H. So for me this one is really typical of cryptos that will not make an ATH again. So we have a price that is almost at the same levels as in 2022 and even below that in May-June 2022. We also have a price that is very much below the 200 moving average, and then in terms of performance there to go to the ATH we would have to do almost an x9. So there you go. For all these reasons for me A.T.H. has very little chance that we will have a new ATH on this cycle. So the next one is AVAX. Well, there I am a little more divided because I already find that AVAX is still not bad, Especially over the last 12 months I find that there is a good dynamic, but finally we see that it has returned below its moving average 200, and that you will see is still quite telling, a marker which is still quite interesting. And in terms of dynamics, well, we see that finally we are still below the prices of May-June 2022, or in any case we are not very far from it. So it is true that even if there over the last 12 months it has still recovered well, but when we zoom out a little it remains quite light, and finally we are still quite far from the A.T.H, so there we have to go to about x5.5, let's say. On AVAX we will say that I am a little more measured, but it is still not a foregone conclusion to see a new A.T.H. So the next one is Shiba. There it's a bit like for Dogecoin, I'm not at all sure that there is a new A.T.H, even if there in terms of performance it is quite playable. You need x5.2 to make a new A.T.H, but there we will say it's more globally. I have more the impression that Pepe and then a lot of other meme coins are going up well, and that on the contrary we have Shiba and Dogecoin which are making less and less volume. And then there if we look on the other hand, we are well above the moving average 200. On this side we have a crypto which has managed to regain a little momentum, but on the other hand we see that we are not above the prices of 2022 either, so there it remains quite light. So for me I don't think there will be a new A.T.H on the cycle. Then Chainlink, and there you know that I have a little bit in my wallet, and well, it really remains a small position that must be around 1%. So in terms of performance there we will say that it is not unplayable. You have to go to x4.8 to go to the A.T.H, but on the other hand graphically it is still not great. We have a price that has returned below the moving average 200, and we see that above there is not a great dynamic either, so it is the same for me. Chainlink, I do not think that there will be a new A.T.H, but on the other hand I think that it will go to at least in these levels, so we will say between $34 and $40. So the next one is Bitcoin Cash. There I will pass quite quickly, go to x13 x14 to reach the A.T.H, so it seems much too far to me. Polkadot is the same, you have to go and get x13 x14, and on top of that I'll show you anyway, but we have a chart that is really catastrophic. I think there is Atom Cosmos, we have there the two worst charts of the top 50. They're on the cycle, they are almost on low points, and it is very far from the moving average 200, so there is no need to tell you that there is very little chance that we have a new A.T.H on it. So then Litecoin, there in terms of performance we have to go to x6.5. we will say that it is still playable, but we see that there on the cycle there is no return of dynamics at all. We have a price which is almost the same as in 2022. We have a price which has just broken downwards the big bullish channel which had been in place since 2017, and we have a price which does not manage at all to pass the moving average 200. So for all these reasons I do not think we see a Litecoin beyond $450 on the cycle. So then we have a lot of new cryptos, so they are not concerned by this video. ICP, well, there we have to go to x60 to make an A.T.H, so needless to say that it will not happen. Then the next one for me is Uniswap. So there you have to do x6.6 to get the A.T.H, so we'll say that in terms of numbers it's quite possible, but on the other hand in terms of chart we see that it's the same. It looks a lot like what we saw before, so for me on Uniswap there won't be a new A.T.H on the cycle. Then the next one is Ethereum Classic, and there on that one you have to go for more than AX9 to make a new A.T.H, with a price that overall remains roughly in the same levels as since 2022, and which also can't get back to its M200 on Classic Ethereum. I'd be surprised if we have a new A.T.H. So then on Monero XMR there you only need AX3.5 to get the A.T.H, but we see on the other hand that in terms of chart it is not great either. The dynamics are not good, it remains stuck in a range since 2022. So on Monero I do not think there is a new A.T.H. On XLM Stellar Lumens you have to go do more than AX10, the dynamics are not good at all, so there will probably not be a new A.T.H. So then the next one for me will be on Filecoin, there you have to go do x65 to get the A.T.H, so Filecoin seems to me rapt to see a new A.T.H on the cycle. On the crow of crypto.com then it's the same, I don't think there will be a new A.T.H because in terms of performance you have to go for an x11, and that on this crypto there is not enough dynamics. On HBAR it's the same, you have to go for more than an x10, and there if I show you the chart it is not beautiful at all since we are below the levels of May-June 2022 and we have a price that is still stuck under the moving average 200, so it's the same on HBAR. I would be surprised if we have an x10 or more on the cycle. And then we have VED left, on which we have to go and do an x12 to make a new A.T.H, and there in terms of chart it's the same look, it looks a lot like what we saw before. So then our friend Atom Cosmos, there we have to do almost an x10 to get the A.T.H, and frankly we have a chart that is really catastrophic. I think it's the worst chart in the top 50. And to finish we have FTM left, so there we have to go and get X 5.5 to make the ATH. So once again we will say that in terms of performance it remains possible, but when we look at the dynamics since 2022 it is really not good, and which has difficulty passing the 200 moving average. So there you go. For all these reasons, for me on FTM there will be no new ATH on this cycle either. So here it is friends, this is the end of this video. I hope in any case that you liked it. Do not hesitate to like it, to comment on it, and to subscribe to view other videos. I remind you that in the description of this video you will find the useful links and the links to support me. See you soon for a next video. Ciao.